Coach. First of all, just seeing if all your transfers and newcomers have enrolled and are here. And it may have been a coincidence the way it fell, but I think outside of one guy, all your transfers were P6 guys and have that experience at that level. Was that kind of a mindset going in, or is that just the way it happened?
To answer your first question, we still got a couple guys that had some personal conflicts that didn't allow them to be here the first day, but they're trickling in, and expect them to be here by the end of the week, so we'll be fine that way. And in terms of our approach to the spring recruiting, particularly the portal, we didn't have, hey, we're only going to sign or recruit, guys that have experience at that level. Certainly it weighs in on when you're making decisions on, who you're trying to go after. I think it's a little bit easier at times to evaluate those prospects because of the obvious of who they're playing against and with, and the competition level. You don't have to think about that quite as much, so maybe it makes it a little bit easier that way. But I know, your confidence level, I think when you sign someone at that level, is higher, that it will translate to, your particular program.
Coach, just talking about Josh Hubbard, coming off that great freshman season that he had, just your visions in the offseason of him, how he's attacked it so far, and how much of a jump do you think he can make from freshman to sophomore, even though he's already been really good?
Yeah, I think a smile broke out on my face when you brought his name up. It's fun to talk about Josh. If you think about it, we haven't been on the floor with our guys a week before finals, so you're talking the end of April till yesterday. So what they've done from the end of April till June, 4th, that's, quite a few days, obviously, 30-some days. And, certainly every coach in America, gives them an exit speech of, hey, stay on your game, keep working. Some take it to heart, some don't. I'm 100% confident, even though I don't know, because I'm not there with him, that Josh has continued to, work on his game, strengthen his weaknesses, spend time like he has for the majority of his life in trying to prepare himself for the season and get better and just have that mentality. For me, and I've said this before, the jump that I want him to make is more from a leadership capacity. Josh has respect in the locker room. You can tell just by watching how his teammates treat him, communicate with him, even if it's us coaches every day or you media folks that watch us play or a fan. I mean, if you're paying attention, he had respect from his teammates. And I thought it was pretty remarkable how he came in as a true freshman and had the kind of year individually and the impact that he had, but in a way that, the team and the returnees put their arms around him and accepted him, and he did it with such modesty and humbleness that, that's why it worked the way it did. But going forward, for us to be as good as I think we all want to be, the ask of him is going to be more from a verbal leadership role rather than just by example all the time. And he's going to have to find his voice even more. And in this day and age, in my opinion, it's hard to do. The guys are a little more politically correct with one another, and and it's cool because they get along well, and there's not as many maybe issues when it comes to competitive things, or maybe there used to be. But if you can get some guys to kind of step up a little bit, and he's the perfect candidate, with his stature on the team, with his game, with his work ethic. And so we've already had some talks about it, but we're going to have more as we get deeper into preparing for the season.
Justin, second row middle, then we'll come back over to Steph.
Chris, with the transfer portal guard additions, what do you just like about bringing in Kanye, Riley, Claudel, RJ, and sort of what do you feel like the challenges are getting all those guys, working together and trying to mix and match and all that with Josh when it's time for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a challenge June 5th. That's a question that probably better served when we get to, November and the games start unfolding. I've been doing this long enough to know that, good or bad, a lot of things are going to happen between now and then. And, I'm not concerned about that at all. Everybody's eyes are wide open when they're going through these processes of recruiting for their individual futures. And we're very transparent with our guys in the process as well. It's not like, we're trying to hide anything, or we share exactly what our roster looks like at that particular point in time. And so, again, everybody's understands that, if you want to win, you got to have other good players around you. There's no utopia out there. And everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to play. So to find guys that are willing to join forces in this day and age, knowing that there's competition around them can be a challenge at times. But we feel really good right now. I think most coaches probably do at this point, in the summer, of where we're at and the type of guys that we have, in our locker room, on our practice floor. But there's a lot, obviously, of time that will happen, and things will happen, and that'll all work out.
Steph, and then John, the coach's left.
When we spoke this time last year, you had all 5, starters coming back, and everyone was talking about kind of the jump the team would make with that. I guess this year, when you've got, a lot of new faces, a lot of moving parts, how do you kind of go about, trying to establish culture, establish expectations when there are so many new pieces and maybe not as many familiar faces as, you had last year?
Yeah, it's definitely different this year. Yesterday was our first day on the floor. That was our first day that we chose for our 8 weeks to work out our guys, with the NCAA limitations. And you used to talk about the night before official practice being, the night before Christmas, right? But to be honest with you, like, it feels, for me anyway, like 2 nights ago was that night, because you can practice so much more now leading up to the first official that you know who you got, right? So now with access to them in the summer, getting on the floor for the first time as, you're their coach and they're Bulldogs, and, here's our team. It's exhilarating to get out there and see, how they move, in person, to, watch them go through the drills that we're teaching them. So it's a lot different because, like you mentioned, the year before, we had more main guys, if you will. We got plenty of guys returning this year, but not as many starters or full rotation guys as maybe we did a year ago. So we have more new players that are going to be vying for, those roles. And so it's exciting that way to, kind of unwrap, if you will, the gifts and see what they're all about.
Chris, obviously last year marked the first time this program's gone to back-to-back NCAA tournaments in a really long time. I guess, have you seen that kind of pay dividends on the recruiting trail, this year compared to the others, to kind of include that in the pitch, like, hey, like, we're a postseason team each year, and adding that to it? Has it made things easier on that end?
I think you're better served if you ask the new players that joined our program to get an honest answer. From my perspective and our staff's perspective, I would answer yes. College athletics is obviously evolving and changing, as we speak. Since I've arrived, there's been a lot of change, and there's going to be even more change in the next 18 months. So it's interesting times that way. But the one thing that, in my opinion, always stays the same for the majority of the players is they want to win, right? They want to be in a winning program. That they understand the feeling of most of them have been in some sort of winning program at some point in their career. I don't care if it goes junior high, high school, previous school, whatever the case may be. And so when you can have that, rather than you're selling a vision of what we're going to be, we are going to win. Like, it's much easier to have, the factual evidence, if you will, and the recent history of, going to the NCAA tournament and, having a run, where we almost had a chance to play for an SEC tournament championship. No question, especially when it's not your first year, right? If you're taking over a program that maybe had some hard times, then obviously you might get a little bit of a pass that way, and you get to sell that vision and use your recent history to try to get them to join your program. But once you've been in a program for, a couple of years, then at that point, it's hard, I would imagine, hard to sell that as much as it is when you're new. So we're fortunate that way, and hopefully that will continue to attract, players to join us.
Benjamin, second row middle, then we'll go back to Paul, and then Justin.
Yeah, so you were able to sign a contract extension this spring. So what's that mean to have the support from your athletic director and have him believe in the vision for the program? Obviously, it's been had a lot of success early on in your tenure, and you can continue to build a winning program here.
I think they're going to expect us to win more. But in all seriousness, just feels great to have the support, like you mentioned, from Dr. Keenum and the powers to be. Certainly, athletic director Zach Selman had a lot to do with it, and we're very, very appreciative and excited, to be here and to continue to build upon what we've started. You hearken back to when we got here. I mean, that's what we said we were going to do. We were going to make the NCAA tournament, and we were going to build teams, each and every year with the goal of being a perennial, NCAA tournament at large program. And fortunately, we've been able to do that. Certainly, we're not satisfied. The early exits are not the plan. We raised our goals last year as a program for the first time, for me, for any program I've ever been in as a head coach, in terms of what the end goal was for our team. So we fell short of that. And, we'll continue to raise those goals, that we have, that we basically keep to ourselves in our locker room. But, it definitely helps with recruiting. It helps just for the staff, more than excited that, they get more reassurance and stability. I just think it helps the program overall when things like that happen.
A couple more. Obviously, you've seen Riley Kugel in person and played against him. Just kind of, he's been versatile so far in his college career. Just I know it'd take a while to see where he fits in, but position-wise, what he could possibly play for you, and any update on filling that last assistant coach spot?
Yeah, like you mentioned, familiar with Riley because we competed against him the last couple of years. When you get involved with a portal kid especially, and you've played against them, it makes the process easier and quicker. I don't have to go watch a bunch of video. I don't have to go look at a bunch of analytics. Certainly we do some of that with everybody, but it speeds up the process on our end if we're pinning our ears back and saying, let's go try to get this person to join us. But I think the word you mentioned, the versatility, I think is something that he'll bring to the table. The game is becoming more and more positionless. We really changed how we played last year compared to our first year, and I think that will continue to evolve to more the positionless type basketball, and those medium-sized guys that can guard multiple positions and can play in all spots on the floor become more valuable. And I think Riley eventually is someone, once he learns the system and gets his feet underneath him, could be that kind of guy, that he could stuff the stat sheet and do a lot of different things. And, for me and him, and I'm not speaking out of turn, he knows this, like the consistency department is something that, we're hoping that we can establish with him in the summer. So when we get to the fall and the practices are longer and more rigorous, that he has that base, and that will hopefully get onto the court for him. I think his inconsistency is something that maybe he has battled his first 2 years as a player in this league, and we're hoping with his experience, maturity, we're going to try to provide, some things for him as well that he can be more of a consistent performer on game day. Yeah, it's going great. We've had obviously a ton of interest. It may seem like it's taken us a while, but in reality, I didn't deal with it for weeks. I told everyone on our staff, I don't want you spending time taking calls. Just put it on me. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what coach is doing. He's not dealing with it because we had better things that we needed to be spending our time on with putting our roster together, either retention or recruiting new players. So, in the last 3 weeks, I've spent quite a bit of time in vetting guys and having conversations, and we're getting closer and closer for that to be done.
Go to Justin and then back to John.
Chris, you guys had Keyshawn Murphy going in the portal and then come out. What were just conversations with him like during that time? And I guess how do you handle that type of situation as a coach? Yeah,
fortunately, I think for all of us, we've been through enough recruiting cycles now to, in your personal opinion, how you best handle those type of situations. And, from the time I got here to inheriting who we did, who we had, and some guys were on the fence of either, coming back because they were in the portal or going into the portal. And, so with Murph, I felt like we had an understanding of how we should handle it, and how, my opinion, we just try to give them time and space. And it's not a sales pitch. I always feel like at that point, if you've had a young man in your program for a year and you're recruiting him and selling him like a new recruit, then if I was a current player, I'd be looking at me like, what are you talking about? I just had 9-10 months around you every day of what it's going to be like. And so I tell them that exactly what I'm telling you. I'm not going to recruit you again. You know who we are. We want you back. But I get it. If you feel like you need to look around, do some comparing and some contrasting, I understand. We're going to give you the time and space. We love having you here, but at the same time, the rules are the rules and the options are the options. So that approach has served us well thus far. And I know it was an exciting day when, he basically verbally told me that he was taking his name out of the portal and he was going to be a Dog. And I'm very happy that he made that decision.
Chris, there was a report in April from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette that you had interviewed for that job opening. I just didn't know if you had any comment on that or any insight that you could share regarding it.
Well, first of all, I think all of us know at this point in our lives that we shouldn't believe everything that we read on social media. I would say, regardless of the question, that would be my first comment about that. And that's all I'm going to say.
Go back to Justin. I have time for a couple more.
Chris, what do you like just about the two center transfer portal additions that you guys brought in and the challenges of having to replace Tolu Smith going into this year?
Yeah, that's going to be a big challenge for our program. Tolu Smith's been a mainstay for us since I've been here. He's been a guy that, put up a ton of points and rebounds and obviously played a ton of minutes. He was a big part of our success since we've arrived, and I've talked about him a lot with you folks about he's a better person than he is a player, and that's about as big a compliment I think a coach can give one of his own players. And so there's big shoes to fill, and they all know already that we're not asking any one of the two new guys or any returnee to be Tolu Smith. Now, we need some folks to step up and provide some production, in the minutes that he played, but it doesn't necessarily have to be how Tolu or Jimmy, did it. It's going to be different. We're going to have to figure out exactly, who they are and what they're made of. And, I'm excited about the challenge of, I love coaching Tolu and Jimmy, but they were older guys. You know, these guys are young guys that are still growing and developing and figuring it out. And for us to speed that process up, and how much better can we get them from yesterday till game day, and then even from game day till March. And I'm excited about that challenge, and it's going to be a staff challenge, and certainly they're going to have to do their part with showing up with, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to learn. But the early returns, that they're going to be the type of sponges and possess the type of work ethic that they'll need to be able to, you know, do what I've just described in terms of getting better and growing. But there's a lot of work to do there for sure.
Paul and Steph, to wrap us up.
Noticed, I guess a couple of weeks ago, you guys released some of your non-conference schedule. How is that process going? I know it's always a process in the summer and fall, and when are you kind of hoping to wrap that up? And what, I know in the past you've had a lot of neutral court games, obviously the help with the net, is that kind of still the same mindset?
You know, ideally, I'd love to get more home and homes with, you know, I guess the new term is Power 4, if I'm not mistaken, programs. You know, it takes two to tango, obviously, and, you know, we've had a difficult time, especially recently, of getting people interested in possibly doing that. And more often than not, if for us anyway, we'd have to be willing to go on the road first, which I'm not opposed to. Obviously, we're doing that with Memphis this year, and you know, talking to some other teams about doing it as well. But there's a balance, right? If you start a bunch of them on the road, then the next year you're home heavy, and you know, are you going to have the right net opportunities with it harder to be quad 1 and quad 2 at home? And at the end of the day, like how we've looked at it is opportunities. You know, we have a set number of opportunities that we feel like, and certainly it's not an exact science. You know, you're projecting these teams of where they're going to fall, and I mean, it's really, really hard to do that. We were right sometimes last year, and we were wrong sometimes last year. But our formula is to get X amount of opportunities in the 13 non-league games that we're provided. We feel confident that if we're successful enough in those games, then we'll be in position because of the SEC schedule to have enough opportunities. Certainly, at the end of the day, you got to win. But you also have to have the opportunities with the quad 1 and quad 2, and I think we know enough about how all that works, even though the formula has never been public in terms of the quad, et cetera. We know enough about it now where in scheduling it's crucial to get there. So that's always in the back of my mind. Certainly you're trying to provide some games that your fans will get excited about outside of the SEC schedule, but it becomes difficult at times to get people to come here and play us, but we're working diligently at it, and we're getting closer to the end. You know, we've got a couple more. You know, we're close at being able to sign some contracts and get it closer to the finish line, but we're still searching, you know, for a couple more games. And the neutral site, the obvious is, you know, it's easier to get to quad 1 and quad 2. So I think everybody across the country has been using that avenue. I don't know if we'll have, I think we had 6, if I'm not mistaken, last year. I'm not sure we'll have quite as many, but we're certainly going to have some.
Obviously, with getting Cam back this year, just how big is that, you know, in terms of a leadership, you know, role and someone in the locker room, and where can you kind of still see his game improve as he goes into this next season?
Yeah, I grabbed him yesterday, and I just, you know, real briefly, you know, hey, it's a big offseason for you, right? I mean, everybody knows his athletic ability and his competitiveness, and you know, he plays with a fire, and he's got all those intangibles. You know, he's off the chart that way. But his skill level, you know, needs to improve. And, you know, now's the time. You know, you got months to put the time in and improve your game. And for us, obviously it's crucial, but more importantly for him and his future in basketball, it's more crucial for his career. And it's just a matter of being disciplined. It's a matter of, getting up those days where you don't feel like it, and you don't, I'll blow it off today. I'll do it tomorrow. And, we all understand that in life, and, all the cliches and sayings that are out there, he's going to have to gravitate towards one of them, and it's going to have to, guide him, if you will. And it's a big offseason for him. We've got to get him where he can, score better, make open shots. I think it changes his whole game big time if he's able to do that. And I'm pretty confident at this point. It's easy now. We just started, but he's got to get his rhythm and get his discipline to get in that gym as much as he can to be able to, just expand his game. But we talked about Josh earlier, and certainly, I think everybody knows, Cam will be a big leader for us this year. Him and Josh. Not that there can't be other people that lead in their own ways, but I think those two will be the guys, in my opinion, that will from day one help lead this basketball team.